You're very welcome back. Now, our next guest has spent 25 years working to identify human remains all over the world, but his latest project is a lot closer to home.
Joining us now is humanitarian forensic specialist Oran Finegan. Good morning, Oran. It's lovely to have you here.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
We have to start with the most obvious question. What is a humanitarian forensic specialist?
Well, I asked myself that question many times, but put quite simply, it's applying forensic skills and knowledge to humanitarian action. And so I think bringing it a bit deeper than that, it's trying to utilise skills to search for, recover and identify the missing in compromised environments, so in conflict zones or following a disaster. So you're dealing with fragile or destroyed buildings and facilities, and trying to design methods with under-resourced institutions to examine and identify those remains.
So you have travelled to conflict zones all over the globe. Mm-hmm. What does it entail whenever you land to one of these zones?
I mean, I think like many humanitarian workers, it's always a challenge getting there. I think every scenario is different. It depends if you're entering during the midst of the conflict or just following the conflict. But you have to... The organisation I worked mostly with was the International Committee of the Red Cross, and they really have, more than many institutions, access in these war zones. I remember arriving in Yemen, for example, and at that time there were no civilian flights into the country. It was just humanitarian aid flights. And I remember arriving at the airport and there was no one there, bar some stray cats in the luggage arrival area, and the local militias on the ground. I think you have to prepare yourself to listen and to learn from those and not go with preconceptions about what the environment is like.
Because I would imagine that someone with your skill set will be needed in a place in Gaza.
Yes.
Very soon, because obviously there is nothing but rubble. Buildings are collapsed and we don't know how many bodies are under those buildings.
Yeah.
So you studied anatomy, then you went into forensic anthropology. You wanted something different. It was a relation of yours said to do this. The first place you went to was Bosnia, which of course was a huge conflict zone.
Yeah.
So does this mean you going into a grave and excavating bones and then trying to identify who this person is? Is that what you have to do?
So my main area of specialisation at the time when I was practising was in the mortuary. Examining those remains that had been recovered by forensic archaeologists and estimating, for example, a biological profile. So what age would this individual have been? What identifying features may there be that can help in their identification? But also at that time, because the work was being done for the tribunals in the Hague, where they were trying to collect evidence to bring to account those who had committed the atrocities. You were looking for evidence of crimes. So looking at trauma analysis, patterns that may aid those trials in providing the necessary evidence. So for me, it was quite a shock to the system. When I arrived, I didn't know what to expect. You know, I heard about forensics. I'd followed the war when it took place in the Balkans, but I didn't really understand the impact of working on those types of cases, seeing the evidence of those war graves and the various atrocities. So I think it took an impact on me, and that took some years, I think, for me to fully recognise.
What impact does it have on you? Does it impact you, like PTSD? You hear these people who are in wars. I mean, you're coming in here and seeing hundreds, thousands of dead bodies. Yeah. Can you compartmentalise it?
No, I don't think you can. I mean, it's a really important question. I think people often try and push to one side or underplay the impact that this type of work has on humanitarian workers, and in this case, in forensic practitioners. For me, I felt it took some years for me to come to terms with what I had seen. And definitely, I would say I suffered traumatic stress from it. I definitely saw the impact on my mental health in the years that followed. I've heard practitioners say, oh, we get through, it's not that difficult. I don't feel that does justice to those who engage in this work, and it means that it puts at risk putting in place the necessary support systems for workers like that.
You've been to conflict zones all over the world. You've uncovered war crimes. You have examined all these bodies, and now you're home.
Yep.
And you're home for something that I think shocked the world when they found out about it. You're going to be involved in the Tuam Mother and Baby Home. There's 796 babies buried on that site. So what are you going to be doing?
So obviously, when I took the decision to come home, I really wanted to do something different. I wanted to move and work towards advocacy, advising state services and institutions, and founding the company I'm in, Forensic Action International. And just before I came home and I was planning, an opportunity came up, the position to lead the forensic process in Tuam under the director for the office. And it was an opportunity I couldn't look away from. Being able to come home to Ireland, to the country I grew up in, and to be able to share some of my skills and knowledge on such an important project for the country, I believe, was really important. So now what I am doing, what the office is doing with a very dedicated team and committed director, is to put in place the team, the processes and protocols so that we can carry out the recovery and examination of these remains in line with international best practice and standards.
And what will we hope to get out of it?
I think you could ask 100 people and they could all say something very different. I think it's a personal thing for the survivors and for the families. All I can do as a forensic practitioner is stick to the protocols and procedures that I know and I have learned from a forensic perspective. So ensuring that I oversee the recovery of those remains in a high standard level, ensure that the remains are examined thoroughly in an independent manner, and collect that information and hopefully be able to identify in some instances some of those remains, but most importantly, bring dignity and respect to the dead. And I think over my 25 years, seeing the importance, and it doesn't matter whether it's been working in the Philippines or in the Middle East or in the Americas, every context I've been to, the one thread that has come through those is the need for dignity for the deceased and trying to bring some clarity to families who've lost someone who is missing. And I think that's what's most important.
Yeah, and there's so many people who are going to be affected by what you're going to uncover here as well.
Yes.
It's really incredible to hear you use the word dignity, what they were denied in life. It's lovely. I'm sure we'll be hearing an awful lot more for you as this very difficult project goes on. You're Director of Forensic Action International. Yeah. Oran Finegan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really do wish you all the best with the work.
A very difficult job.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks
so much, Oran. Fascinating. Thank you.